there's a lot of talk about, we'll just use two extreme examples. Has anyone heard of the Bulgarian system training? Anyone heard of like West Side Barbell, conjugate style? So they would be kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, whereas Bulgarian style favors a lot of specificity. Specificity in the sense that you're doing a 1 rep maximum, and specificity in the sense that you're maxing out in the competition lifts. In the sense of like weightlifting, they might be maxing out on like a squat, for example. Not to say there's going to be variations of it, of course. Same thing with West Side. There's a right or wrong way to apply these principles. West Side is going to favor not as much specificity, but it's going to favor a lot of what?
Variation.
Variation. Okay. What's right? What's wrong? Some might, favor more. Other programs may favor more fatigue management. Other programs may favor more overload. So something like a Bulgarian system, it's overload all the time. Something like West Side does a good job of overload, but also a good job of fatigue management because they have a dynamic NMX except for days, not all the days are heavy. So what we like to kind of combine the best of both worlds. So we're going to have some days where we're practicing the competition lifts, and we're going to have some days where we're going to have some variety. And where we're going to get most of our varieties through what we call supplemental exercise. So your primary exercise typically is going to look more closely related to the main competition lift. It may not always, the rep range is going to be dependent on where you are in a training cycle. Typically, if you're far out from meet or if you're in off season, you're going to have higher frequency, higher volume, and use a higher rep range. So for example, you may squat and bench press multiple times per week, and you may be using anywhere 6, 8, even 10 rep range. When you go into your strength training cycle, you may drop the frequency, you might only use a little bit less frequency, you might only squat and deadlift once a week, you may be benching twice a week. And then the reps are going to be more in the 3 to 5 rep range, and when you go to a peaking phase, you're going to be doing more singles, doubles, triples, super high intensity, lower volume. One of the goals for a peaking cycle is dropping fatigue, so you can peak for the contest. So we want to overload the CNS, we want to have technical prowess during the peaking phase, and we want to drop fatigue so we can get ready for the contest. So we like to utilize, so when we're talking about supplemental exercises, those are going to be the secondary, we call secondary barbell movement, and that's going to be some variation of the main lift to target some sort of weak point. So in all three variations, things that really help skill, what I call skill acquisition, so learning the movement, I would use that super early in the off season, but also it could be a supplement, it could be as a main movement, but also during a peaking cycle, technical acquisition movements like we did with the wall squat can be helpful during a peaking phase, because one of the qualities of a peaking phase is you want to have good high technical prowess. You obviously want your technique very crisp going into a contest. Does that make sense? So these are strategies for when to do certain supplemental exercises in certain phases. So in my opinion, the best exercises that build technical prowess, and there's going to be a couple of different variations, but if I had to pick one, is just the pause variations of all three lifts. So for example, a pause squat like we did with Otis, a pause squat, you can't really, if you're in a bad position in the bottom, you're going to fall over. It forces you into a good position. You can obviously take that a step further. If you're a knee wrap lifter, you can kind of do a double pause because that's going to kind of be where the wraps kind of let up. You can kind of use that as a variation. A longer pause bench press, like a 2, 3 count, or even 5 count pause, and a pause deadlift where you're working on the transition points. Because again, if I pause here and the bar is out in front of me, I'm going to take a step. If I pause here and I get forward, if I pause here, oh, that doesn't feel good. So it's going to force you into a good position. I don't really like another, I think the pause variation is the best. Another variations which I would do in off season because it's going to create a lot of time under tension, help you build muscle, would be what we call tempo variations. So slow eccentric, slow lowering. So lowering the squat for a 5 count, lowering the bench for a 5 count. I don't want to use this too much, but even lowering a deadlift slowly is very challenging. But that's going to be really good to build time under tension and also build technical prowess. I wouldn't put that in the peaking phase because it's going to get you tempo and eccentric movements, get you very sore. So a good off-season movement, not probably the best idea in the peaking cycle because you're going to build up too much fatigue from those. Makes sense. So somewhere in between, I think that you should utilize movements that are going to help build your strength, some movements that kind of emphasize the top end of the range of motion, and some movements that help the bottom end of the range of motion, especially if you're a long lifter, typically that's where we kind of fail. So for the bottom end of the range of motion, something like a high bar squat or a front squat, or if you have access to a belt squat can be great, but just something that's going to emphasize your quads a little bit more. Even in your competition squat with the band around your knees like we did before, but something that's going to help build leg strength to help kind of propel you out of the bottom of the hole. Okay. In my opinion, most people tend to favor their back a lot when they squat. So doing exercises like a front squat or a high bar squat is going to help build up the quad strength that you need so you can utilize the quads better in your low bar or your competition stances. Okay. For a bench press, doing some wide, I would say like opposite grip. So if you're normally a wide grip bencher, you can go like close grip. If you're normally a close grip bencher, you go wide grip. And you can also even do that with your feet up to make the range of motion a little bit longer. And again, it's going to be more time and tension, so it's going to make you a little bit weaker in the bottom. And for deadlifts, I mixed those up. But a deficit deadlift is great if you have the mobility to do it, standing on a block. If you're a sumo deadlifter, I just made a post about this, adding some sort of conventional deadlift to kind of build up that back strength so you hold position to the bottom can be very effective. Okay, and then something for the top end of range of motion, we mentioned like a double pause squat. For the squat is great if you're like a knee wrap lifter. For a deadlift, like a block pull, I like a 1 inch and 1.5 inch height for a sumo deadlifter. Conventional deadlifters can go a little higher, like 2 or 3 inch blocks. And then for the bench, like a board or like a Spoto press, which is like basically an invisible board press for that. And also, just early on in your off season, don't be afraid to even do movements that are a little bit unrelated, like a safety squat, bar squat, like a duffel bar bench to extend the range of motion, like snatch or deadlift or stiff leg deadlift. So those are a little bit further away from the competition lift, but they're really great strength builders because they're a little bit harder. We call that, like, a lot of people are familiar with the concept of overloading, but we talk about, like in the book, underloading is also a great concept. So you're picking exercises that you don't need a lot of load. So for example, safety squat, bar squat with a beltless, for example, is going to be a lot harder than a competition squat with a belt. Incline press can be harder than flat bench. Okay, stiff leg deadlifts can be harder than regular deadlift. So these are exercises where you can underload, so you can still have a very high muscular stimulus without as much load on your body in an off-season type phase. Okay, so I just want to kind of cover some of those when you're picking out exercises and stuff where you're working with a coach. So if you're working with a coach, they should be able to kind of explain like why this exercise is in a certain phase and like what's the purpose of it.